So, to give you a little bit of background of this project, so this project sits within a bigger project called Everything to Everybody, which as English teachers you might want to look up actually. So it's about Shakespeare, in a sense. It's about Shakespeare and it isn't about Shakespeare. I'll explain to you why. So you probably know Birmingham is an industrial city. Birmingham in the 19th century, David? I'm not very good. So 18 something, all these people came to Birmingham. We did quite a lot of work about this as well. People came from different countries, from different cultures. And nowadays, because a lot of people were white, we forget there was this mass migration then. But there was people from Yemen, people from France, there was whole French-speaking streets, Italians, Lodz, David, didn't you? We did loads of work on this. Yeah. And at that time, there was George Dawson. He was a non-denominational priest, which I can't say. And he said there's all these people with all their faiths and beliefs, and we need something to unite them under as Birmingham. So he created this idea of this civic gospel. It also stood for that workers should have high quality, so it really resonates also with the work you did, you know, that they deserve better services, they also deserve better schools, better all schooling. So George Dixon also, did you know this, David, was actually in the circle of George Dawson, so this school, which is school's named after George Dixon. He was a mate with George Dawson, so they really wanted everybody to have education as well. So it stood in this light. And one of the things they did at that time, and they did this in Germany and other countries as well, they felt like Shakespeare represented what it means to be human. So they created Shakespeare libraries in different countries, which they collected many different languages in. So our Shakespeare library has 94 languages in it. So we worked with this last year on this idea, and there's a presentation we can also share. We will put that on the website as well, about exploring that, because it's almost unknown. It's gifted to the people of Birmingham, but nobody knows it exists. So I also counsel all of you as teachers to work with this collection, to come and find out about it. This project was led by the University of Birmingham, the Shakespeare Institute, Professor Ewan Fernie, who wanted this to be more unpacked. So a lot of projects, massive amount of community project partners, we're one of them. Most of them worked across Shakespeare. We didn't want to, because I just felt like we were more interested in Dawson. Mm-hmm. True?
Yeah, definitely.
And we wanted to also talk about the civic gospel, because we live again in a time of division, I think, where people will say, oh, you're this ethnic group, you're this cultural group, you're this, you're that. And we wanted to look at what brings us together, what does Birmingham mean for us today. That's also why this is called We Make Brum rather than We Made Brum. So Brum is Birmingham, it's short for Birmingham. It's a because it's such a big word. Yeah. They just call it Brum. And people who are from Birmingham, we call them Brummies. We had some project funding from the Everything to Everybody project. We also went to Arts Council England to get more funding to work with a group of young emerging practitioners. One of them being Ava Daniela MacDonald, which a lot of you know. She came to Portugal. And then we worked with an emerging filmmaker, an emerging composer. I say emerging because we don't like to use the word young in our team, because people emerge at different times. With an emerging poet and graphic designer. So all these different creatives went into different classes, but also came to the group.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people had personal connections. The graphic designer Sharon G, who created the We Make Brum and basically the whole exhibition, she went to George Dixon, and Ava Daniela, her mum, went to George Dixon. So a lot of people knew the teachers. So it's quite a nice community space. We would say, what do you want the name of the exhibition to be called? And we would sit and think of a slogan for about an hour, and then we would come to a conclusion, but then maybe it wouldn't be the right name. We made Brum, they wanted we made in China, made in Brum, they wanted that kind of slogan, but then we wanted it more present. We Make Brum.
So then we rolled that onto Sharanjit, who is the designer consultant. She does all our design for our organization. She then rolled the idea into the, was it year
9?
Year 9s. but also for her, I think she was in a particularly good situation because the art teacher she was working with actually taught her. So he was totally excited. Everybody was super excited because he was so excited. So it's the role of the teacher again. Like she was coming back because he kind of helped her on her journey. And it was kind of that mutual respect. So they then took what you created and worked on it and created the final We Make Brum thing.
Simone Wordsmith came in to the sixth formers, and so it was quite a bigger group. There were boys and the girls, and she just encouraged them to just write down anything they were feeling with the title We Make Brum, and everyone wrote down, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, and I think getting them to do work in front of us was much easier for them to create something in the end, because we were kind of like, you do have to do this now, you have to write it down. And they were getting into it. It was like she told them to write anything, there weren't limits, I think. They were it was free.
There was no right or wrong.
Yeah, there was no right or wrong. You didn't have to give it in to us, you could keep it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no,
Yeah, she didn't ask for it.
She never asked.
To say, you have to give it to me.
Yeah. And she said, if you feel comfortable enough, you can give it in.
So she then used that as a basis for her own column. So that's how we rolled it as well.
To everybody, it was a lot like equality, justice, core values, equity, balance, and we thought We Make Brum would have similar connotations, so we posed it to year 9s, and it quite hard topics came up, like debt and life crime, high crime rates, dirty, but still positive stuff like multicultural, someone put weird accent. It was playing around it was what do they think? There was no right or wrong.
And I think it's, you're a Londoner and you just come to Birmingham, but in Birmingham it's very much within Britain, it's very much conceived as a ridiculous city. People have a stupid accent, it's not very interesting, it hasn't got much culture. In the 19th century it was the best governed city in Europe, so it draws in time, but it's really gone down and people have really internalized this. Mm-hmm. I think loads of people make jokes about Brummies, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very common. So that was interesting to us how much the young people internalized this as well.
And then in the poetry was what really came out, the free write. We just told them all to just free write, and the class just went silent. So I think on the next slide. So some of it is so positive. Birmingham to me is the right place to be. All the things you can see, I'm sure you can agree. But we found year 9s were more negative, the conceptions I'm not proud of Birmingham, why should I be? I'm jealous some people weren't from here. My mum calls me a Brum, I'm not. It has a bad history of racism and sexism. We are colonisers, selfish and stealers. These are 14-year-olds, and me going into this class, I was not thinking about these things at 14. It was quite, it was very surprising. I think Simone also thought it was very surprising. It was you are the future. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how we internalize. So there's a lot of stuff that's in general outside, and I think that's what's so exciting about this, to show it with all the difficulties, because we need to know what young people think, to do something with it. And this whole project was an idea to say, why can't we celebrate it? Let's just own it. But we have to go first through this process of looking what's there. Because if you dismiss, people sometimes just do jolly projects. They go oh yeah, let's do a nice thing. It's not honest. So in our organization, we have an agreement in our team that we do not work in trauma, so we will not go into this deep and make more work about it. You could easily make more work about this, but we recognize it's there. We talk about it, and then we reframe it into a dream, into a visioning sculpture. So saying it comes from a lot of stuff comes from a bad place, but we want to see what we can dream from it, because we can also dream from this all together. So I met Simone, just to add to this, I met Simone at an event And the poem she did actually moved me to tears, because she talked about, and I think it's very relevant in this context, how she was dyslexic in school, and her teacher said to her, "You're too stupid to do English because you can't write." And the poem talks about dyslexia, and then the last line, I'll never forget it, is that says, "My name is not dyslexia, my name is Simone." And I mean, it just sort of that process is incredibly powerful. So we also have to think about how we cast people into, you can't do this or you can't do. Now she's a poet.
And just to add, that was the poem that she did to the year 9s. She spoke to the year 9s, and I think it resonated with lots of them. That's why they went so quiet.
Yeah.
That's why they were able to give so much more.
And it was from a genuine place, because that really happened to her. So that's her now.
Maybe Birmingham's wrists have been twisting for years, trying to find the perfect position to write its story. Its fingers still cramped halfway up its quill. Dip us in ink, spread us everywhere, curve our names into the spaces of archaic books, paint us with rose petals, engrave our faces in wood. We are Brummies, not just by name or accent, but look deep into the grooves of our fingerprints and you will see there is a history, a slight curvature bent by George Dawson, preacher and civic gospel pioneer. In 1844, while this city was still learning to walk, he bought a scalpel knife to sculpt Birmingham into a city that will benefit all.